Hello, Telvanni here, and today I want to talk a little bit about the new Scarab of Radiant Storms. This Scarab was just introduced today with patch 3.24.2 Necropolis, and was a bit of a surprising mid-league content addition. I think this Scarab has the potential to be useful in some circumstances, and will certainly see some niche uses, but a little bit more about that later. Alright, so what does this new Scarab actually do? Well, as the description suggests, the Scarab will add a Resplendent Tempest to your maps. But what does that mean? Tempest is an older League mechanic that nowadays is typically only present in Alva's Incursion temples. However, it's also seen a bit of a comeback with the Corrupting Tempest Necropolis Devoted modifier you may have seen this League. But for those of you who are unaware, Tempests essentially cause repeated AoEs to appear in your maps that apply a buff to your character if you stand in them. Stand in the AoE, wait for it to go off, and boom, you've got the Tempest buff. In this case, the Resplendent buff. As far as I can tell, this buff grants you, most importantly, increased item quantity and increased item rarity for 20 seconds, starting off at a plus 50% increased item quantity and plus 50% increased item rarity. And that number gets smaller and smaller as the buff wears off, dropping off completely when the buff ends. So with 10 seconds of the initial 20 seconds remaining, you might only have about 25% increased item quantity and item rarity instead of the 50%. This means to make the most of the Tempest, you will want to be constantly refreshing the buff by standing in the Tempest as often as possible. As a result, I think for a lot of strategies, this Scarab won't actually be that useful, as needing to coordinate your character's positioning and make sure you're grabbing those Tempest buffs can be quite difficult under most circumstances, with it basically being impossible to see the Tempest AoE during the heat of battle with a lot of screen clutter. However, I do think that this Scarab could be a very strong option for strategies utilizing things like the Ambush Scarab of Containment, that essentially packs all of the monsters in your maps into strongboxes. This gives you the ability to control when you're killing monsters, so you can pop the strongboxes and kill everything while you have that high Resplendent buff value. And then if you miss a Tempest, you can simply wait for the next one before you open the next set of strongboxes. I can also see this Scarab synergizing well with something like Breach or Legion, where again you sort of have that control of when you are engaging with monsters. Outside those sort of controlled situations, I don't think the Scarab is going to perform as well, unless you are just a god tier player and can not only see every single Tempest AoE, but also make sure you're able to stand in them as they pop off. In my mind, this Scarab sort of competes for a Scarab slot with the Horned Scarab of Glittering, with the Horned Scarab of Glittering being more useful in situations where you're killing a bunch of monsters continuously, like Beyond and Delirium, and the Scarab of Radiant Storms being more useful in more bursty but controlled encounters. Ultimately, you could potentially try using them together, but I think that will have far fewer use cases. Anyway, I thought I'd share with you some of my findings about this new Scarab, as well as some of the potential uses I see for it. Thank you for watching, good luck with your league, and I'll see you in the next one.